It's May and like every gardener I know, I'm way behind on my planting out. However, today is Wednesday and on Saturday I'm going to Wales for a friend's wedding and a quick holiday. But there's absolutely no rain forecast in this very dry part of England, so I'm going to try and plant out all of my climbing plants, my brassicas, my tomatoes, peppers and aubergines, all before I need to leave. You can direct sow French beans, but to get them off to a good start, I decided to grow them in pots. In hindsight, creating extra work was a mistake, but I did get very good germination. French beans need something to climb up. They grow these long and thin stems, which can end up several meters high. So if you plant them next to a pole, they'll grow upwards and naturally spiral themselves around it. So I'm going to plant my beans at the bottom of these bamboo poles, which form a part of my central archway. Peas grow differently to beans, as they have these small tendrils, which curl up and grab onto things they come into contact with. It's like they literally climb their way upwards. I'm using this mesh, which I put up last year to support my butternut squash and my cucumbers. And speaking of squashes, I also started growing some pumpkins, which I'm going to grow up the middle archway. Last year the butternut squashes struggled in the semi-shade at the bottom of the garden, while the peas were taken out by the heat of the full sun. So the plan this year is to give the pumpkins and the climbing beans full sun at the top of the garden, and to give the peas semi-shade down the bottom. Hey Pete, what's up? Do I want to go to the pub? Morning everyone. In the end I didn't get much done yesterday, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of extra planting before work. And don't tell my boss, but I might be taking a long lunch break today too. My plan for today is to plant my brassicas in the beds on this half of the garden. The idea being that I can see them from the kitchen door, so I might spend more time looking after them and fighting off pests, like the caterpillars that decimated my kale last year. But all of my brassicas are really stunted. I grew them in pots that were far too small, I didn't thin them out, I didn't transplant them either, so they're slowly becoming root bound. I just didn't give them any tender loving care at all really. However, I don't expect I'll be able to give them much TLC in the future either, so I'm going to give them some tough love and get my baby brassicas in the ground. I'll be planting cabbages, broccoli and cauliflower here, but I'll also be putting in some celery and a couple of other things. Looks like someone ate all of my cabbages, so that's one less job to do. Cabbages and broccoli like to be planted at 30 to 45 centimetres apart, while cauliflower can be grown from 30 centimetres right the way through to 75 centimetres, depending on the time of year and the variety. But I'll be planting all of mine at 30 centimetre spacings because I've got a lot of plants and I really don't mind if I only have small heads of cauliflower. I really need this meeting to end. That meeting really overran and I feel like I'm miles behind on my planting. I've got trays and trays of flowers that needed to go in the ground weeks ago. I'm starting to run out of light here too, so I'm going to get straight on with it. I plant flowers right next to my vegetables for two reasons. The first is that they attract the pollinators to exactly where I need them to be. And the second is that they either repel some pests from the area, or they are super attractive to other pests and act as sacrificial plants. I overslept, so I've only got a couple of hours to plant my tomatoes, my peppers and my aubergines, and I haven't even figured out which ones are going in the ground yet. And I still need to pack for my trip. My plan is to pre-drill all of the holes using a dibber, chuck an egg in the hole, and then place all of my plants on top. For peppers, I'm planting them very tightly together, only 30 centimetres, where really they should be 45 centimetres or 18 inches apart, which is how I've spaced my tomatoes. We got very lucky there. I got through 54 pepper plants. I've only got a couple of spares in the greenhouse. Oh, I forgot about the strawberries. These bare roots have been sitting here all week and are already starting to grow. They just can't wait any longer. I've just got back from my trip and I didn't get everything done before I left. So now is the moment of truth. Let's go outside and see which plants survived. First of all, everything in the beds did really well thanks to the soaker hose running on a timer. The peppers are a bit limp because the clay soil isn't great and really needed a mulch, but we have our first flower of the season already. Come on. But inside the greenhouse, other than being very dry, things don't look all that bad. I only planted one aubergine, but the rest of them look fine. The courgettes desperately need to go in, but they're still looking good, while the loofahs are really starting to look a bit sad. And these are some of the most root-bound sunflowers I've ever grown, and they desperately need some water. On the whole, I'm glad I tried to plant them all in one desperate rush, because that's just more tasks completed. And some plants obviously struggled, but some of the ones that I recently up-potted, like the tomatoes, could probably have stayed in their pots a little while longer if it weren't for the fact that the eggs I were using were starting to smell a bit. And if you want to find out why I plant eggs under my tomato plants and how I built their supports, check out this video here. And as always, happy gardening!